Hello, welcome to this 11th episode. I'm calling it. I have not posted in a while, and I think I need to stop commenting on time and timing altogether because when I put something out there and I'm like, I'm gonna do this in this amount of time, it doesn't happen. Not that I don't have discipline, not that I don't have some form of control. But when I'm sharing something like this that I don't really feel like is something that I created, even though I, in some technical ways, created it, it's more like it's bigger than me and it's for everybody in some way. And so, oh, my neck hurts a little bit. And so I'm just gonna keep sharing, okay? And I'm gonna try my best. Wait, no, I just said I wasn't gonna comment on time, and then there I go. Just, well, leave it up to the unknown how long it will actually take me to get through all of the videos. For some reason, I was thinking it would take less time than the class, which was 6 months. And honestly, it's already been like 9 months and I haven't posted consistently. But I think we're about halfway through. Wait, no. That's how many slides do I have here? 317. That is halfway through this chunk. So I do want to try to get through them. So that's why these are a little bit over an hour and why I suggest that people watch them at a faster playback speed. Not necessarily to cater to a shorter attention span, but whatever this plane of existence and reality is. I mean, I have my own theories, I'm not going to get into them all now, but you could say, is time speeding up? Are we speeding up? Are we shifting a density or a certain kind of energy? And so the perception of time and our experience of what manifested time is shifting. I don't know, but I feel it. So let's just begin here. Okay. So like I said, 11th episode of this 88 series. And here I'm calling back something I brought up before, which was a breakdown of the beginning parts of finance and and my different playing arounds with sorry. Oh no, I'm not sorry. That was like a part of this. It's a release, it's a transformation. So Telos is something I brought up. And mind you, if you don't know me, well, you'll never know all of me. I know that. And even I don't know all of me. But I'm a weirdo freak. I spent most of my life preparing for how I felt the world would shift after 2020 if I could make it there. And at a certain part of my life, I decided I wasn't going to make it, so I just went a little crazy. But I might not be the most academic or the most cultured or the most appropriate when it comes to knowing how to pronounce things or knowing what might be common knowledge or common sense. Because again, I spent my life navigating things in a way where I was willing to be called a moron and fail classes and things just because I wanted to retain again what I felt would happen after the year 2020 and what I wanted to retain of my own story and gnosis. And so even after all these years, yes, it's still considered crazy to think for oneself, even in spaces that talk about being like open and conscious or whatever it is. It's like why I focus on this plane being holographic and not something to grasp and hold and prove because everything is in everything. And so I'm not trying to necessarily prove anything, but I'd like to highlight this stuff. So what I might be suggesting or commenting on, like, wow, I didn't know that. You might be like, duh, I knew that. Okay, just don't watch or skip over it if you're annoyed by me. I don't know what I'm saying, but I guess I'm giving some explanation. Like I probably didn't even need to say all of that, but I did. So okay, here we are where I broke down finance, Nance, and I brought up telos, which means end, and tele, and then at some point I started talking about the telkines and we're along the lines of the sea, the money systems, Poseidon, the Trident, etc. And so I didn't know. I said here, wait, what? Telos, remember? I just brought it up, so maybe you remember, maybe you don't. Finance breakdown. I had no idea because I'm such a hermit in a certain way that Telos is to be considered by some. Let me just read these blurbs from Wikipedia. okay, that's as best as I can do because I was looking for something easy and convenient. Yes, I admit it. I was looking for convenience, which might not always be the best solution, but it is the transparent avenue I did take here. So take it with a grain of salt. Mount Shasta has also, so I don't know what they were talking about, sorry, has been a focus for non-Native American legends centered on a hidden city called Telos. I don't know if that's how you'd pronounce it. Telos, of advanced beings from the lost content of Lemuria. The legend grew from an offhand mention of Lemuria in the 1880s. In 1905, A Dweller on Two Planets by Frederick Spencer Oliver was published, which claimed that survivors from a sunken continent called Lemuria were living in or on Mount Shasta. Oliver's Lemurians lived in a complex system of tunnels beneath with jeweled walls and fur-carpeted floors within the mountain, and occasionally were seen walking the surface dressed in white robes. In 1931, Harvey Spencer Lewis, using the pseudonym Wisher Spenley Survey, wrote a book published by the ancient mystical order Rosicrucius about the, hidden Lemurians of Mount Shasta that a bibliography on Mount Shasta describes as responsible for the legend's widespread popularity. This belief has been incorporated into numerous new religious movements, including the I Am activity. The Summit Lighthouse, Church Universal, and Triumphant Keepers of the Flame, Love Has Won, and Cryon. Several UFO sightings were reported in the proximity of Mount Shasta and are speculated in local legends to be lenticular clouds hiding Lemurian motherships visiting the hidden city of Telos. Bigfoot sightings at Shasta have also become reported. Blah, blah. Okay, so that's just a blurb of all of that lore, and I'm not going to go more into it because I just, I don't know. It's not that I don't believe things, it's that I have my own experience, and I think there's a very fine line between certain movements and what might be the same thing. And you could say some of that is nefarious and by design of a manufactured essence. And yet choosing to dogmatically demonize certain things is the same energy that I don't want to do. So it becomes again that everything is everything and we live in a holographic plane. It is important to sort of go outwards and continuously come back to ourselves so that we don't get lost in the storylines that are for others and their paths. And so I'm saying that because I don't personally resonate with a lot of new age things, but even me saying new age might get lost in translation of what I'm referring to. And so I'm not here to tell you what to believe, but I did find that interesting that I was unaware and it didn't come up when I was looking the first time when I taught the class that these slides are from. And then I don't remember how I came across it. I don't even remember at this point how I came across it, but I was like, wait, what? Like I said here in this last slide. Wait, what? So yeah, let me just continue, but I did want to note that because it's another proof, even though I'm not trying to prove anything, that you can find anything and everything here. You can find everything and anything, anything and everything, everything and everything, anything and anything. And that's not to say there's no meaning to things or that this is a pure simulation or that nothing matters or this isn't real. I'm not saying that. And I know a lot of people are, and that's fine for them. I don't mind it, and maybe I shouldn't say never, but I wouldn't look for me to be saying those things based in my own experience of, you could say, recollecting being conceived, recollecting being in the womb. Not to say I haven't gone to sleep at times in my life, stepped into a more passive or dissociated persona. We all have that side of us to some degree. However, I have maintained a certain level of recollection here that allows me to be okay with being alone, seemingly, in the ways that I choose to, or the ways that I innately see and believe and experience and assimilate, etc. So back to some slides that I might be repeating here from the last, yeah, okay, put some repeats here. I don't know why I did that, but I guess I did it when I was doing the class and there was a reason for it. And so I'm literally sort of lazily to a degree just taking those slides and putting them here and editing them slightly. But some of the things I don't fully remember what I was doing. And so, just let's don't take it too seriously, but let's get into it. Okay. So Greek letters are often used in many different ways with many meanings and stories attached, which is partially why I chose some of the mythos, like Greek mythology, as the focus here. It seems very universal for arenas like science to use Greek letters to represent different things, as well as mathematics. Me, I love finding everything and anything. So let's play here with Pisces in these Pisces. Pi being a little mouth, but also a name for the mathematical constant for the ratio of the circumference of a circle to the diameter. And that makes me think of Demeter and Ceres and a little bit of a Virgo nod. An abbreviation, in this case, of Greek peripheria. Pion, a type. My cat Bob is next to me if you see me looking down. He's my little buddy. A type of subatomic particle, pi being little mouth, ion being the neuter present participle of eni, meaning a to go, a so called because ions move or go towards the electrode of opposite charge. Iron and ion come up in my mind when writing those notes, like a similar spelling and energy to a degree. So little mouth and trident. Trident meaning three teeth, and to me this is another nod to dent. Trident, the trident. But in that it means tooth, and that it could be related to Thoth and an overly mentally centered viewpoint. This is when we could say Virgo is a little bit overly critical of self, of others, whoever it is. It's an amazing energy when centered in, you could say, a relative way. Not that I'm here to tell people how to experience this plane, but you know what it's like when you're being overly critical or when you're receiving criticism. It's not fun for anyone. And sometimes those things are necessary, but sometimes people are branding things as tough love when they're just having an internal issue and then projecting it outwards as criticism in certain ways. So I digress. Pi is 3.14. March 14th was the first eclipse in March. So this was in 2025 of last year. And that it's a Piscean energy. So last year there was an eclipse and it was like a double, I believe, in sidereal and tropical Pisces energy. This is when the North Node, South Node was both in, oh, both, don't do that. Well, you can do that both like as in tropical and sidereal. And so that was a Pisces energy, and we are talking about the Pisces. So 3.14159, an irrational number. It never ends. It doesn't enter a permanently repeating pattern. It's also considered a transcendental number. Very Piscean. No boundaries to a degree. The transcendence of pi implies that it is impossible to solve the ancient challenge of squaring the circle with a compass and a straight edge. Upper and lower cases, so pi as an uppercase denotes a product of a sequence, and then the lowercase is periphery and perimeter. Pi is periphery and perimeter. One way I like to look at this is Virgo being centered, focused, the central nervous system, brain and spine. Pisces, enveloping, involving. This is like peripheral nervous system, nerves and ganglia. Pi is the 16th letter of the Greek alphabet, and for some reason that made me want to look into the eighth letter, maybe just because it is like this, like line and line, two lines, like half, I don't know. And the eighth letter is theta. And maybe I realize this is maybe because am being reminded of the notes that I'll share in a bit that touch on brain waves and the hippocampus, but we'll get there. Periphery, 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 the atmosphere around the Earth. Their circumference, the outer surface, the line, a round circular body, a carrying around. Peripheries, rounded, moving round, revolving, fane, to carry. Perimeter, perimeter, the circumference, outer boundary, or a border of a figure or a surface. Perimetros, perimetron, makes me think of Metatron. Circumference, around, about, metron, measure. Military sense of a boundary of a defended position. Peri, about, around. Metron, to measure. Me, to measure. Met, to take appropriate measures. So we have, what is that thingy called? Right there. And then the Freemason thingy, right? It's my technical terms. The Freemason thingy, you know. And then we have some defenses on the right. Perimeter, a closed path that encompasses, surrounds, or outlines either a two-dimensional shape or a one-dimensional length. Perimeter of a circle or an ellipse is called its circumference. So more comments on that in a bit. The distance around a 2D shape, a measurement of the distance around something, the length of a boundary. So again, Pisces and boundaries. And part of me mentioning that I feel that people are trying to grasp what this plane is because there's a lack of recollection, which I understand, but also I don't to a degree. I will be honest because I do recollect things. However, the way my path works is where doesn't matter how clear I'm trying to be about some things, it comes out as riddles because I'm not here and again, that's for the other YouTube series that I haven't added to in like a year. Story time with Tree, if you wanted to know more about me. I don't want to make it too much about me here, but I just have had my own experience here in a certain way, and I genuinely do not understand what it's like for people to not recollect so many things that have gone on here in this earthly plane. Partially what I mean by us living in a holographic plane, um, but also on the daily to live one's life as if we are here to work or uh to work towards the progress of some sort of strict version of success. Like I am come off again stupid to people or unsuccessful even. I don't understand what people are doing. And in fact, I think people who believe with confidence that they have the best ideas about what people should be doing, humbly need to also take a look at themselves in a certain way because we often can. And I feel that whatever people are describing as time speeding up here, it's like we are given more and more opportunities to be able to take a look at the ways that we are doing something to our own selves or doing something that we say we are against. It's just like, the fabric of reality isn't just one fabric. And I'm looking around my room as if I want to hold stuff up, but if I could, I have a sheet, I have a blanket, I have a scarf, I have a shirt. They're all fabrics, but they're woven differently. They're different materials, they're different thicknesses, they're different stretches. They're for different purposes, although you could use some of them for different things, even though they're meant for other things, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just touching on that there's something we all need to let go of. And yet I'm not trying to prove what's going on here because we're a part of what is going on. And so I feel the more, and you see it with people online, the more somebody is affirmed that they are touching on something real, it's like they try to put it into a business and market it, and then it becomes something else. And it's not to say there's not truth in it, but for people to act as if they understand everything that's going on here, it's simply a farce. I was going to say a fart, but I said, don't say that. And then I just said it anyway. Simply a fart. It's no, just don't do that. So I was about to go on another tangent, but I want to bring it back down here, because, it's not my place to judge people, but here I am doing it. So I just want to be transparent that, yeah, I judge people. We all do this. And yet, this is just a frustration I experience because I also have a business, but I am moving in a way where I'm not trying to use a certain quality of fabric to do things because it's what it's not what I'm here to do. If we, let's say, get sucked into a persona of like, oh, I want credit for that. I want my name on it. I want to be referred to. I'm right. And there's this energy of confidence, the con of phi density. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just an energy, and we can find ourselves being led by someone else's story, by someone else's formula or equation when we need to navigate our own. And so it's important that we continue to come back to ourselves in a certain way because as people are speaking more and more and more on what this plane is and what they're so right about, it's not that it too shifts, but then that awareness also becomes a part of what we're experiencing in this sort of kaleidoscopic way. Not that there's no control, not that there aren't any boundaries, and yet people they're choosing to do these things, and that's important to acknowledge that like our choices do matter. It's not all about us, it's not all about everybody else, but there is some sort of a balance where maybe we're all different and you can use astrology or all these different ways and frameworks to interpret things, to step into certain energies or archetypes and be like, I'm in this energy, I'm doing it this way. Let's say someone is more public facing or more private, and yet none of us are supposed to have access to us all the time. And that's an opinion, but it's partially based in on how often is somebody giving me an energy, giving an idea, giving a performance, acting as if it is reality, and then sitting online and telling people what's real or not. It's just a mess. That's why I will repeat myself and say I'm not here to tell you how to experience it, but I'm going to keep playing here. So Pisces Virgo axis as this peripheral and central nervous system energy. The Pisces, the peripheral seas that are Pisces, peripheral vision, indirect vision, Pisces away from the center, away from the eye of the storm, indirect circling, and Virgo towards the center, direct, pointed. Pisces, peripheral vision out of the corner of one's eye. Peripheral vision has inner and outer boundaries. Peripheral is indirect or subconscious. This is about 90 to 97%, and take that with a major grain of salt, of one's visual field. Central, foveal, or direct, what I also call conscious energy, is 3 to 10%. So it's not to say that everybody's unconscious, and yet when I say that not one person should have so much access, or not so many people should have access to one person, however I might phrase that, I don't think there's a way for any of it because we're here all together and we're all real. Mind you, like you can believe there's all these things going on. I have my own ideas of like bad aliens or clones or whatever. And yet I feel everybody in my neighborhood. I cannot deny that I feel people. I could say, oh, this is a simulation and it's just from me, but that to me is a little bit colonial style energy. But what I'm saying is, I feel like there's a reason that we would be sort of subconscious, like with others. And that's why there's something to stepping away from making everything about ourselves, but also not going so extreme towards everything is about, like, let's say it's not I am, it's we are. It's like, but it's both because, like, you are here. And yet, we all are as well. So there's something to not looking at the 3 to 10% of conscious energy as something negative or something lacking. It's almost like we should be, what's the word I'm looking for? We should be intentional per who, however you want to play that with how we are living our lives so that we use that conscious energy in a way where we're not creating situations and circumstances where we do become our own worst enemy because we are replaying circumstances and situations rather than making certain changes because what we are conscious of at some point it is our like we are exposing ourselves to things or not, and our day to day can only shift so much if we shift. If we don't shift, there's not much that's going to change, and so we can sort of create this echo chamber where we're surrounding ourselves with things that confirm how things are, and that I think is where certain tower moments come in. Bad moments, tower moments, whatever, they're always going to happen because not like everything's always bad, but like there are cycles to things. There are spectrums being circulated. And you don't necessarily go, oh, I can't wait for the bad things. I mean, when I was little, I started to go, oh, every time something bad happens, something like not so bad happens eventually. And then you go, oh, that's not so bad. And that's kind of cool. And so when bad things would happen, I would kind of be like, which became weird socially because then I'm like, I like being triggered. And it's not that I like being triggered, it's that it's like, oh, life is very tender. It is very felt. Not everybody processes it the same way, and not everybody chooses the same things. But there's something to oh, now I forget what I was saying because I just looked at this and I'm going on a tangent again. So let me just cut myself off, okay? And let me get back to this because um I don't know. Because I just want to read these actually. It's gonna take me so long to get through all of these if I keep doing that. But whatever I was saying, like telepathy, zing, bing, boom, bam. You get it. All right, visceral level is the most primitive and simple part of the brain, and this responds to sensory information, which is related to the subconscious. Peripheral vision, part of the visceral level of perception. This references unconscious or emotional reactions and instinctive in nature. I was watching Sabrina the Teenage Witch when I was typing up those notes, and the fates had just popped up while I was typing those, which is, of course, one of the energies that I brought up before. But again, I want to say take what I'm saying with a grain of salt because some of the things I'm saying, whether it's like a statistic or a this is this, we don't know things. We know things, but we don't know everything. So I digress once more. Central nervous system, CNS, brain and spinal cord, conscious mind, conscious vision, peripheral nervous system, PNS. Nerves and ganglia relay between brain and spinal cord and the rest of the body. Subconscious mind, subconscious vision. Division. So CNS Virgo, PNS Pisces, peripheral nervous system contains the somatic nervous system. And the somatic nervous system includes the sensory nervous system, like the somatosensory system. And it consists of sensory nerves and somatic nerves, and many nerves which hold both functions. And it also has the autonomic nervous system, which is spoken about much more in the last 10, 15 years. There's a lot. Sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, and the one I like to include that people don't as much, the enteric nervous system, like a webbing of sorts. So this is a little ditty I shared, I think, on the last one. As a little ditty. And it's a little bit of a visual to look at that. So mostly with the central nervous system, it's just the brain and the spine. And it says integrative and control centers as the function. And then, like I mentioned with the peripheral nervous system, this is cranial nerves and spinal nerves. It's nerves and ganglia that come from the brain and the spine. And so there's something to a communication system. And yet, I want to note that the endocannabinoid system is not included in a lot of things. And so there are layers to what homeostasis is that are have just not been talked about at all. And I'll talk about that a little bit at some point. So what we have here, like I said, is all the yellow is the peripheral nervous system. So we have the sensory, the afferent going towards, and the motor, efferent division going away from. Is that correct? I thought afferent away, afferent a. Whatever. Go watch Crash Course Theory. I think those are Crash Course on YouTube, not Theory. But they're like it's like it made for kids, but also anybody, and they have some good sensory nervous system ones. I'll try to remember to link it in the comments. Comment and remind me if I don't and you want to look it up. Um, Autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic, and then we have the somatic nervous system, but I feel like the enteric not mentioned again. All right, so nerve gun, sinew, tendon, hard cord of the body, fiber or bundle of fibers that convey the capacity to feel or move from the brain or spinal cord to the body. Bowstring, string of a musical instrument, like us, we are musical instruments. Um, to ornament with thread. The secondary sense developed from the meaning strength or vigor, force or energy, and I did read vigor as Virgo in my mind. Nerves of steel. Hmm. Look at how similar these words are. Innervation, innervate. Innervation, impairment, infringement, weaken, literally cut the sinews of. Innervate, stimulate through the nerves, sending of a stimulus through the nerves. Peripheral neuropathy, often shortened to neuropathy, refers to damaged or disease affecting the nerves, says science. Maybe we just had to go somewhere for a little bit to endure what we've been experiencing. Damage to the nerves may impair sensation, movement, gland function, and/or organ function depending on when nerve fibers are affected. Neuropathies affecting motor, sensory, or autonomic nerve fibers result in different symptoms. More than one type of fiber may be affected simultaneously. Peripheral neuropathy may be acute or chronic, maybe irreversible, or maybe reversible or permanent. I don't know. Maybe it has to do with a lot more than we may think. And okay, don't go on a tangent. Let me just continue. Um, okay, bam, I guess I just switched focuses here. Look at all these alchemical symbols. I think I was pointing out a specific one, but do I remember which one? No, but I like these. They're pretty. They're pretty. Okay. Um, oh, that's so interesting. Rock salt looks like the Taurus symbol. And salt is Aquarius energy. That's like nat mer, sodium chloride, but Taurus salt is nat salt. That's sodium sulfate. Is that rock salt? I don't know. Maybe it has nothing to do with it because this is bismuth. Bismuth. Is that the same thing? I don't know. I don't know nothing. Um, Mercury, look at that symbol. Looks like many different signs all glommed together. Okay. Alchemical symbols, blah de blah blah. I can square the circle. Look at me do that. Okay. One part of this journey is an attempt to show you how you don't need to read books or follow anyone else's teachings or logic. By all means, do these things if you truly feel called. What needs to come through will come through for you, though. So let's say you don't need to read a whole book. Maybe you want to read a whole book, and yet not all of us read books. Like even with this, I don't expect everyone to indulge in everything I share here. Maybe you randomly pick around and you get what you need. That's not how everyone does things, and they might hate that. So just do you. I'm tagging a video here. So I just it I if I click on it, okay. Yeah, just just go to this guy's website or YouTube channel if you want to find it, and that's the title of it. So, this is a video I mentioned that connects Donald Trump to the Knights of Malta, which was never my intention in sharing any of this stuff. It was just this 2 weeks of me writing notes and putting it into all these slides and sharing it, and it turned into a 6 month endeavor. Could have been a year-long class, honestly. The maps on the following slides are not ones that I follow, nor do I necessarily believe the same things the makers of these maps do, and yet here we are for some reason focused on the same and similar topics, words, themes, and ideologies. I continue to encourage the animism of life, if you will, and how all is alive and not something to prove, although I'm definitely proving a lot of that by providing such info in this long weaving of the 88 series. So this is this is like, oh, this is the death cult. Look at all this proof. Um, so what did I say? So this is the reveals the history of a powerful death cult that has ruled the earth for all of recorded human history. So they say. Okay. Um, what did I write at the bottom? Because I don't need to read all this. I'm sharing this to give you free reign of your own autonomy when it comes to that which you give attention. So I will show you where the map came from and some of the descriptions, and I will show you why I'm sharing it beyond that. So we have this one. Um, Diagram reveals. Oh, that's the same thing that's on. All right, so deep state mapping project. Yeah, see, I don't go into these things, but like I just said, I'm pointing out that, yeah, I'm talking about a lot of the same things. However, aside from me being like, yeah, I have a business, I don't know if we should be creating community. Should is a touchy word. I just will not be doing what a lot of people are doing because they're talking about all this stuff and then they're doing the same thing. And then they'll be like, look what I'm doing. And everyone's got to do this way. And that's not how everybody's doing it. But it seems rarer and rarer that people are sharing things genuinely to help people in certain ways. So I did want to zoom in on this little ditty. Why do I keep saying that? Knights Templar, uh, Knights Hospitalers. That's what we're talking about a little bit here. Order of Malta, SMOM. And yet I'm talking about it slightly differently because I think we need to not lead with this energy of yeah. Ugh, red pill. I don't like it. I don't I don't want to take any pills, okay? Um, I want to eat candy. No, that's not true. I just thought about some candy. It's like something different than a pill, and candy's what came to my mind. And then I thought, oh my gosh, someone's gonna be like, ew, you eat candy. But you know what? Fuck them. Okay, one of my favorite parts of this whole journey is my exploration into the Pisces. So I don't know if you can feel it from me, as I have a hard time knowing how I come off in a certain way, but it brought me a lot of joy to come across this information and share it in this regard and in this way. So we're just going to hop right back in. And like I mentioned, I like to play around with some sort of theory about peripheral vision and the subconscious mind. I keep saying subconscious mind being connected, as well as the peripheral nervous system. And the thing is, when it comes to words, there comes a point when it is hard to even choose ones that do the energetics justice. So let's do the best we can. Here, if peripheral vision is not in the center focus, you could say the same for the subconscious mind. Part of my theory is that when we put things in the backs of our minds, we are placing them in the peripheral vision as well. In this sense, everything is sort of literal and figurative depending on the lens we're looking through. So I'll play around a little bit more with the subconscious mind and peripheral vision, touching back on some of the peripheral systems. And I'm wanting to mention polyvagal theory and coming back to these topics a little later on. So I was putting this image as the central 5 degrees, 8 degrees, paracentral 18 is the macular vision. This is the conscious energy. So it's not to say if you are not conscious, you'll have issues with this energy, but there could be something emotional or mental in the subconscious or unconscious. Take those labels with a grain of salt. That could be hindering your conscious in some way. So even our own selves, we can convince ourselves that we either know ourselves better than we do when we don't have to be doing that. We don't have to be like, I know everything, but we're choosing to do something in a certain way, and that can sometimes come around to bite us in the butt because we're only looking this way, and there's this thing over here, like stepping on our foot, and we didn't realize that our toad had gone numb, and yet I don't know what kind of analogy I'm trying to make up in the moment, but I'm just saying there's other things involved, and we might not always feel it, we might not always know it or be aware of it. Things might come through in certain messaging or dreams or whatever to like hint to us, and yet again, I'm not even saying that there's a clear map about what the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious is. I'm just playing around here. Excuse me. Ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. You see it, right? You see this? Okay. Oh, I guess I put, like, you see it? Do you see it? I zoomed in a little bit and I added some other things and I added this little ditty up here in the left. It has the equator and the prime meridian, crosses of matter. Peripheral, from periphery to peripheral. Peri, Persian pari, Avestan parika, one of a race of superhuman female beings originally represented as malevolent descendants of fallen angels, later as angelic genii. Compare sense evolution of English fairy, to which it is, however, unrelated, so the confident people say. Excuse me. Feral, wild, undomesticated. Fera bestia, wild animal. Ferus, wild. Run wild, having escaped from domestication. Just having fun with that which may not want to be so exposed and seen and ordered all the time. I even like to think that America is just the culmination of all the stuff people didn't want other people to see. So Americans, I'm not just American. However, I was born here. We can be super obnoxious or cringe or like just out there doing things that people are like, ugh, let's judge them for that. And I'm like, yeah, but I wonder if that's why, you know, when it comes to bad business, there's a lot of it here. Someone manipulated something and there's a manufactured persona in a big way going on that has been clever but is also holographic, so it's a part of things. Not that everything is our responsibility, and yet we are our responsibility. And I'm not going to get into like really detailed energy there because again, I can remember being in the womb. Science would say, no, you didn't. Not with your conscious mind or not with whatever. And I'm not even trying to argue about when life starts or anything. I don't know, man. However, I have my own idea about honestly, I had an alarm go off, so I just forgot what I was saying again. So I'm just gonna get back to this. Okay, sorry. Kidneys in Chinese medicine are the root of original life force, or Jing, from your DNA family lineage. What does Jing mean? Crystal. Kidneys are also connected to our autonomic nervous system, kidney yang being connected to the sympathetic nervous system, and kidney yin being connected to the parasympathetic nervous system. Without going much deeper here, I just want to note the two columns and how you could relate these to your kidneys, your kidney meridian, and your memory mostly from conception onward. Kidneys are also very innately connected to our fascial body. Um, yeah, kidneys. Woo. So this is the nervous system. Like I said, the parasympathetic is like kidney yin, and the sympathetic is kidney yang, but take it with a grain of salt or whatever you want to take or not. I say it is a wise idea to get a little bit familiar with these columns, not so that you're instigating an investigation where you're like, oh, I have dysautonomia. autonomic dysfunction. And it's this. Because, and I'm saying this because I've been talking about it for since like 2007 or something. I don't know. I went through all these crazy procedures and tests when I was younger, and I kept being like, I don't know, guys. I don't think I have cancer. I think my memory's overwhelmed. And we're not talking about real shit here in this plane. It's all like work, school, blah, blah, blah. Like, no. Mm-mm. My body can't take it. Can't take being here. And although they'd be like, no, we think you have cancer, they'd be like, these are interesting theories that you're presenting. But I've been talking about the autonomic nervous system a lot since then. And then I think it was around 2018 when I started talking a little bit more about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and connective tissue and collagen and fascia disorders, etc. And so sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Sometimes when I focus on something, it becomes a big thing and it's not all about me, but it makes me go, oh, I want to be a bit more careful about what I focus on because so many things I do focus on become like a big thing. So it's again not about me, but maybe that many of us are picking up on the same things. So we want to be clever and wise with our choices so that we're not falling into these cycles of things where it's sort of the same material. We're working with the same fabric of something where, yes, everything's everything, but we don't have to do the same things with it. Sort of like how we might all have the same ingredients, but different amounts, or we're using them differently, or we're cooking with them in different orders and temperatures, whatever. Um, but partially what I'm saying is rather than feeling so like, oh my gosh, life is whatever. It doesn't have to be this concrete, but even looking at this, or I don't know if I included some other things. I clearly I did. Okay, but did I include? No, I didn't include the one I like, but that we'll work with this one. Um, so let's say your pupils shift in a way that you don't realize, but you feel, you sense it, and then a part of your reality shifts in a way where, let's say, your heart beats a little fast. And then let's say your tummy goes like squeak, squeak, and you're like, oh. And so you might go, oh, I'm sick. And that's it. Or you might go, why am I feeling this way? And maybe you go to the thing, whatever drama or thing you're experiencing that you don't like, and you go, oh, that's it. That's why. And yet, we have more to us going on than what we might be aware of all the time, nor maybe should we be hyper consciously aware of everything all the time. If you have wide peripherals naturally, wide periphs, as I like to call them, you're already maybe a little bit more slightly overwhelmed than other people when you know or notice how many people don't have that and they're driving. You're driving with a bunch of people who can't even see that far back, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. This also includes our memories, but it's not all conscious. So, not to say everyone's just like me because we have wide peripherals, but there's something dormant or curious. And if you're watching this and you don't know why, look, there's a reason why. I may not know it, but there's something I'm speaking to that feels resonant. Okay, so what I'm saying is you don't need to go attached to a whole story when you're noticing these sensations because we're living during a time where just the internet existing is sort of proof that we're hyper connected in a way. We already were, but some people need proof. And so we have the internet and it has manifested and materialized as such. And so we are feeling, let's say, like I mentioned earlier, I can feel everyone in my neighborhood. I simply could be feeling someone else's feelings sometimes. Could be feeling my parents, even my cat. Not to say I'm going to go blaming everyone, but even like I just said, let's say if you relate and you have wide peripheral vision and you can literally see more around you in a room, that's not like a diss to somebody else, but rather than be like, oh, you don't have wide peripherals, having some compassion for whatever that journey is and choosing to focus on yourself in a way that isn't about just judging everyone else and then measuring up to some idea or ideal of what should be, how everyone should be, or whatever. And so it's not easy and not always fun, but and sometimes maybe you want to be like, that's why they don't get what I'm saying because they can't see. My mom has wide peripherals. She's the closest to seeing what I'm saying at times in my family. They don't have as wide peripherals. Um, but she's still like denies it. There's a block. And but she talks about seeing things in the corners of her eyes in certain ways that makes me laugh because I'll show her like a pretty geometrical shape and she'll be like, that looks like the thing in the corner of my, and it's like there are things everywhere telling us, but when I'll be like, Mom, that's something, she'll be like, nah, whatever. And that I think is also the places that we go from conception onward where we dissociate because this is a tender plane of reality and it's emotional, it's mental, it's physical. There's a lot of memory that doesn't get talked about, so it gets sort of channeled into certain planes of reality that are uncomfortable as fuck and still not talked about. So, because then it gets turned into talking about trauma or about therapy, and I just think we've got a little ways to go. And not that things won't shift rapidly, but I really, really urge people who think they know everything going on here and they have a business to go, what is my foresight? What's my plan? Like really connecting with my heart and saying, well, why am I doing what I'm doing? And you don't need to know everything, but like you could say the knowing is a feeling and making sure that you're not doing something so then you can go, told you so, or I'm right, or look, my name's on that. Like, sure, do that, but I won't respect that in a certain way. Not to say there's things that I put work and time into, and I will slap my little logo, which my logo is just my face, is a traced photo of my face. Because then I can go, hey, I see you. But it's more so about that I am doing something. So it doesn't need to be that everybody knows me or quotes me or refers to me when sharing an idea. It's already a part of everything. There's no way you could copy people or whatever. But there's some way that I find people move here where then they try to do something here, and it's like a little, I don't want to say trap, but it's like if we are in a reality that has like spiral energy, it's not like it's like woo, like you just go up so fast or go down or whichever way, it's more like whoosh. And so maybe you have to do another one of those whooshes when you make certain choices. I don't know. All right, so look, here you could look at the bladder as the yang doorway from or to the kidney. So we have yin and yang, water elements in Chinese medicine. So seeing that the bladder meridian is like the sister or brother to our kidney meridian, as we look at peripheral and unconscious and subconscious energies, let's not have edited that. And that the bladder meridian is deeply connected to the eyes. You see it in the middle here. Excuse me, going up the spine, that central nervous system, and then up over the head, or maybe it goes in, whoosh, comes out, eyes. What does that say? Oh. I need to do better job editing these. I must have not gone that far in. So then we have the kidney over here. So that's like the soul energy, bottom of our foot. And that back of the head energy there too. That atomic doorway. A nod to some other meridians that cover the eyes and the peripheral areas of the head and eyes. So we have the gallbladder meridian, which is all over the place there on the left here. It's a wood element. And then we have the stomach meridian. It's an earth energy. And the triple burner meridian, fire energy. I believe it was this year. And I'm not surprised that I did this class from 2024 to 2025. And by the time this year came around, there's all this news about the polyvagal theory being proven wrong or whatever. But I'm not here to prove it right because I personally don't think, and especially because I haven't had the experience a lot of people talk about, I don't think I'm alone in it. In fact, I know I'm not. And yet we do this thing where we'll repeat things as if they're facts and true for everybody. And maybe it's convenience, maybe it's a seemingly less pressure to do. I don't know exactly always what it is. It feels more like social, unspoken taboos to a degree, and we affect each other. But that's why the polyvagal theory is actually such an interesting thing to talk about. So I'm not going to read all of these things, but here's just a diagram by Ruby Jo Walker. And it says it's adapted by Ruby Jo Walker from Cheryl Saunders, Anthony Twig, Wheeler, and Steve Porges. So Steve Porges is the sort of OG person paired with polyvagal theory. So you can look into him. This is like a 90, I think it was 93 that this was presented in a certain way or more established as a theory. And so the idea is that instead of it just being the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, there's actually these three levels, and then they equated it to sort of like this green, yellow, red, and you could even use like a stop or a traffic light as a little bit of the explanation where we don't just have fight or flight, we have ventral vagal social engagement at that parasympathetic level. We have sympathetic danger, hyperarousal energy that arrives after a threat, and we orientate ourselves in our reality to what is going on. And then we have dorsal vagal, life threat, hypoarousal, where we actually shut down. And so this could be something where an example, a small example would be, and not small if you were this animal, but let's say there's a predator chasing a prey, and it's like an animal that plays dead. Plays dead. It's not playing. It's a shutdown response, and it's frozen in a certain way. So this is talking about people, and I'm talking about an animal, but there is something to animism, but not fully, you know, imprinting the human nature and anthropomorph whatever more you know what I'm trying to say, imprinting the human ideologies onto animals. However, once a predator is like, oh, I guess this prey's dead, might as well go, and there's nothing to do here. Once they feel safe again, they then, let's say if their legs are up in the air and they're frozen, they'll move their legs all furiously in the air, or they'll literally run around in a sort of frantic manner to dispel the energy of if they would have actually ran, because a part of them was actually running, but their body shut down, their systems shut down for safety, for protection. So that's what a lot of this is about. And you can imagine with so many people here not remembering things and then literally being like, here's what reality is, even though they themselves don't actually remember. It's quite scary sometimes to look around and be like, so many confident people, which is why my joke is that confidence is the con of phi density. We all have the opportunity to be confident, and confidence can be an amazing thing, but it can also be a way to do bad business. And bad business to me isn't just about having a business and making money in a certain shady way. It is wanting your ego to be fed in a certain way. It's wanting attention from so many people in a certain way. And I'm not here to say all of those certain ways and what they are, but it's again a feeling, that's a knowing, and you go, oh. So there's a lot here. I enjoy looking into polyvagal theory and the idea that when one feels threatened, the middle ear turns off. And instead of being able to hear, let's say, me speaking right now, you would hear high screams or low growls more easily so that you could be ready for a threat, whether that's someone screaming from something, you're like, what are they screaming about? Or a growl, or who's growling at me? But let's say in this modern day, the threats are not like a big scary monster. And that's where the stories are very interesting here, because there's like a almost like a general dissociative energy here. A lot of people in pain, but who have created some sort of echo chamber or whatever it is, where like maybe one feels like they're doing what they want, but really they're seemingly imprisoned by a certain way of being, and it's, getting confirmations in a certain way and just sort of drudging along and doing the same thing every day. It's not to say how everybody is or that people aren't happy, but that there is a lot more going on here where ecclesiasticism, religion, and what I might call new age religion, it's like a lot of people trying to tell everybody this is the way, rather than slowing down in certain ways and saying we actually don't know so much, but maybe we all have a little piece to the puzzle and it might take some time to get there, but we can do it. And not everybody's designed the same way. So how would we know how someone could help us unless we connected or opened up in certain ways? So we don't all need to open up in the same ways, but there's something to this polyvagal theory. So safe, feeling safe, open to social engagement and play, parasympathetic ventral vagal system, a hybrid state being the ventral vagal and sympathetic, where we have play, dance, and sports. Mobilized in response to a perceived threat, ready to fight or flee, sympathetic nervous system. And you could say something there is like it has this little crossover where with the safe energy, there's crossovers with play, dance, sports, quiet moments, and intimacy. So with the mobilized energy, mobilized in response to a perceived threat, sports overlap there. So do dance and play, but I would say that's why I didn't love sports. I loved playing, but when we would compete in a game, oh my gosh, my body would react in the craziest ways. Like, for example, I was really good at basketball in practice. I could do scrimmage, I could shoot, and then you put me in a game and I'd be like, whoa, whoa, or like the ball would go through my legs and I wouldn't catch it and stuff. And people would be like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, sorry. Sometimes it would be like I'd be ready to do jump ball because I could jump. I'm a little shorty, but I was like, I could jump. And then they'd be like, tweet. I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna vomit. It's like the energy of competition. It's like I realized when I learned about the polyvagal theory that it wasn't so logical and conscious, even if I could explain it, it was my body reacting. And that was sort of this beautiful moment of becoming closer to myself instead of being like, why are you like this? Oh. Okay, so the hybrid state, again, this is on this side, it says freeze state of defense. So maybe not the best, where we have sympathetic plus dorsal vagal. Then we have immobilized in response to an extreme threat, shut down and unable to move. But we also have a hybrid state of the crossover between that safe ventral vagal and the dorsal vagal that creates quiet moments and intimacy. And this is another area where certain brands or forms of meditation or literally the suggestion that silence is golden. Like I know for me, I'm someone that like I don't love that energy. I can be in silence and I can do certain things for sure. And actually, in ways that are quite disciplined. However, it's not what gets me to a place of safety. Um, and then in fact, even I feel like just talking about it right now, I'm like, it's like, okay, you're okay. But I know I'm not going to share it right now, but I know what memories get triggered in my peripheral vision and memory, if you will, that then shoot forward in this moment that I go, oh, that is so I can make it logical or rational. And yet, in a moment of my body reacting in a certain way, if somehow, way, or shape we could be more compassionate or understanding in that we're all having our own experiences with all of this, maybe we could have some more progress rather than everyone wanting to get certifications and do therapy and all these things that are the way to do them. Mind you, there are plenty of therapists that are amazing, but I think there should be some somehow lessening of the social taboo of like people being so put together and always feeling safe or whatever it is, or even always feeling mobilized or we're not always a victim and we're not always fine. Um, okay, so again, looking back to the other recording where I mentioned the connection between what has been said about things like visual snow and the somatic nervous system, which is a part of the peripheral nervous system. We have this whole thing here as I showed, and I circled the somatic nervous system. So imagine this from conception onward and even beyond. We are aware and we are conscious, our physical bodies recording all information processed. But there is a role we fall into when we are born, even before that. And our auditory systems form a lot when we're born. So we're picking up on a lot when it comes to especially these nervous systems recording, the ears being a part of this sensory system, and You could even say with Taurus energy, if you wanted to talk about that, the sense of self, the sense of worth, and the senses very connected there. And then cerebellum, subconscious energy. Um, so there's a role we fall into when we're born, some role, and maybe we are conditioned and programmed by those around us, by our environments. In human design, you will note that the personality or mind side of the chart on the right side, usually the black glyphs, is also the conscious chart. It's the right side of what's called a natal quantum chart, if you've ever seen them from me or on Genetic Matrix. These are connected to these placements or this column, one's or an event's birth time, date, and location. And then the left side, sometimes the red glyphs, this is called the design side or the body side, and this is the unconscious part of the chart. So this is the left side of the natal quantum chart, and this is 88 astrological days prior to that birth time, date, and location. So here you could see that the body is then processing the unconscious mind in some sense. And this is why when I do, for example, work, or I used to, like applied kinesiology and muscle testing, I connect to somebody's physical body through the energetics. And then I'm better able to read the energy of the subconscious and unconscious minds because it's not mine. And I'm literally just reading the body. I'm not like going and telling someone. It's me scanning, reading, seeing, and then asking questions because it's not for me to imprint in a certain way. But it's like, how can we play with this and transform this in a certain way? So this is again where things can get a little tricky, partly because of words and how differently we may interpret and receive and use them, partly because of how much influence men have had on these sorts of words, labels, decisions, and fields like psychology, and partly because the unknown. When we are not facing something, or we are mostly only running on the stimulation impulses from our bodies, and because our nervous systems have been recording since conception onward, not all stimulations make sense or even mean anything too deeply. So, some things that could trigger us are simply a reminder of how our body was processing our physical experiences and our environments. For example, our nervous system records a physical sensation like a sound that occurred when we felt scared. Like maybe we got scared by something and there was a show playing or there was some noise. And then in the future, when we hear that same sound, our body feels scared again. So this could relate to how we are feeling literally in the womb, on top of what we may have been receiving energetically and emotionally from our mothers and those around her. But also during those mentioned 88 astrological days, you can imagine if the theory is true, one is receiving a lot of influence and multidimensional stimulation in the womb, much of which will be dismissed and unacknowledged based on how much of society has been operating. This life experience without the knowledge or conversing about the actual materialization upon this plane without all of the religious and governmental influence and dogma, it's intense as fuck. And so I think sometimes we are reading our unconscious energy and labeling it as something like discomfort, but there is so much of this plane left unacknowledged and unspoken about. And our curious minds as children are suppressed, depressed, and oppressed by people who had the same thing happen to them. To those who perpetuate the ideology that you lose your imagination. So sometimes the dis-ease and disorder is simply how the unspoken is being forced to express itself. It is real. So when we are not speaking up or we are not doing what we want to feel or called to do, I believe this is much of the basis for disease and disorder. So not like it's our fault, but like I feel like it gets pushed back into the cerebellum, subconscious, Taurus, Virgo energy realm, or the subconscious mind, or even the unconscious mind, depending on the level of awareness and stimulation and how one is processing it. We are not willing to face or look at or observe, etc., ourselves and our realities. So when we're not willing to do that, we can end up creating a feedback loop that we are perpetually feeding until we are able to become more conscious of certain things. This does not mean we know everything or know it all. This means to me that we cannot be afraid of our emotions in the way that our nervous system has recorded them over time based in our experiences, the way we remember them, the way we recollect them, the way we have been stimulated in some way or form to feel and replay, taking into consideration that there are many teachings that relay the ideology that we are made up of the same stuff of our ancestors were made up of. physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, etc., with all of these molecular memories and then some, because there's a collective echo of that. Something we may see out of the corner of our eye. Sorry, I definitely did not edit these, so the text is so huge. Something we may see out of the corner of our eye may be an actual memory or piece of multidimensional energetic information that another part of us is wishing for the conscious part to recognize and acknowledge. And as all is alive and conscious in some way, is this some big bad out to get us? A shadow person? We see them in our eye. Peripheral, or is this a multidimensional piece of us? Maybe as one's identity, we can only hold so much. So all is conscious, but not all the time. We are born into this time space for some reason. I don't know if it is to know everything. This is partly why I enjoy normalizing complaining or venting or talking about uncomfortable or taboo topics as long as we have the capacity and clearly and transparently communicate it without codependency and critical expectations. Like we can't just be dumping our stuff on people and expect them to take it or respond in a way that we expect. I do believe storytelling, slowing down, even though I might speak fast when I'm sharing these, actually listening to individuals is a part of the plan. And a nod to the people who always talk about all this being a game or a script, etc. You could say all is the truth. And that song from, if you've never heard it, it's by a group called Handsome Boy Modeling School, and it's called The Truth. And it says, the truth hurts because that's all there really is. I will soon touch on mind control programs that I've mentioned, and when I do, I'll bring some of this back up and speak about different brain waves we are supposedly experiencing at different ages and times of day. I'll touch on circadian and infradian rhythms. Eye pathologies and other neurological conditions can also be the cause of visual anomalies, including the appearance of visual static or other changes in perception. Additionally, psychological disorders such as somatic disorders could potentially contribute to these perceptual disturbances. Do you remember that part from before? You might not. One last thing I'll say is that a lot of people talk about the somatic nervous system and healing, and I think a lot of it is more simple and involves slowing down and trying not to gain from sharing our story, but being incredibly respectful of our story and of our minds and bodies, etc. I think I'm gonna stop there and then record another one very soon. Goodbye.